Hi, folks. Thanks for giving us the most precious thing you have, your time. Just wanted to share a thought about something as we're watching the news. One thing we always try to do hard here is trying to stay ahead of what the news is and don't just react to it. Of course, the entire news media business is based on reaction and getting people to react. We're guilty too. We do things trying to get you to follow along. But there's a term that I think we need to apply to some of the news as we start looking ahead to what's coming next, not just the Iran conflict, not just the economy, and not just the political news, and not just the midterm cycle that's coming up as the primaries are really rolling hot and heavy now, but kind of projecting ahead as well. We know Donald Trump and the Trump administration is a lame duck presidency, but when does that kick in? There's a terminology that comes from football, especially NFL level football and somewhat college level, called cluster injuries. And cluster injuries will absolutely derail your season no matter how good your team is, no matter how good your players are, no matter how well you plan, no matter how passionate your fan base is. A cluster injury will ruin everything. And what happens is your entire offensive line gets hurt. Everybody in the defensive backfield gets hurt. All your running backs get hurt. You get cluster injuries to one position, and it just ruins everything because you can't get anything else done because you become so weak on that one point. Cluster injuries and self-induced injuries at that are becoming a problem for the Trump administration. It's not just that the Iran war is unpopular, it is. It's that it's unpopular and it's going to have economic consequences that are immediate and apparent to people with things like high gas prices. It's not just that gas prices are going up because of the Iran war. It's because Donald Trump just spent an entire year taking credit, sometimes falsely, sometimes a little bit exaggeratedly, for gas prices being low and telling everybody gas prices are low and it's all to his credit, which means when they go back up, you're going to get the blame. It's not just that the economy is a concern for people, it's that they've been talking about tariffs nonstop, and the average person, all they see is costs. They don't see benefits to tariffs. You see how this stuff all starts piling up over and over again. Let's go to one of the strongest polling points that the Trump administration had coming in, immigration. All of a sudden, in the newest Gallup polling, that by the way was taken right before the Iran conflict kicked off, so it doesn't apply for that. But the three biggest issues for people was how the government's being run and immigration. And immigration was rising, but it wasn't the anti-immigration. It was people's concern with how immigration is being enforced starting to tick up. More and more Democrats were starting to get involved and name immigration as being important, and less Trump supporters and Republicans were naming it as their top issue, backing away from it a little bit. So it's not just the Kristi Noem disaster at DHS now that she's been fired and is going to be replaced by Markwayne Mullin, who's just as much, if not more so, of a hardliner. It's that it comes at a time when public opinion is turning on that particular issue. You see how this stuff starts clustering and it builds. Cluster injuries, self-induced ones at that. We have a midterm election that's going to be about the economy, but the president is very obsessed with foreign policy right now. In fact, we're not even figuring out what the off ramp in Iran is going to be right now. And he's already talking about what they're going to do with Cuba. Now, Cuba's dictatorship has brutalized the Cuban people for a long, long time. They need to go away and the Cuban people need to be free. Nothing wrong with that. But the timing of it is very questionable. Now, you do it when you can do it. I understand that. But when you add in lame duck fatigue and you line up the fact that there's so many people that are concerned about domestic issues right now, having constant foreign policy news and now a shooting war in Iran, and we're starting to get flag draped coffins coming back, and we don't seem to have a plan. And we have people that are stranded over there because we didn't plan ahead to evacuate them. And the insurance on the shipping industry is a mess because we didn't plan ahead on that. And we don't really seem to have a plan if the new Ayatollah and the IRGC just decide they're not going to surrender, they're just going to bunker in. These things start compounding into problems. And then you start adding in the economic stuff. And then you start adding in the chaos of government. And then you add in a decade worth of Trump fatigue that's going to set in at some point if it hadn't already. And you can see why you can use an analogy of cluster injuries. If the midterms go very, very badly for the Republicans, and it sure looks like they're going to if the Democratic Party is even halfway competent, then we got to look ahead to some other things about cluster injuries that may be self-induced here. One thing that may be self-induced on top of everything else, look at what they're doing already for the 250th anniversary of the country coming up. It's going to be star-spangled patriotism everywhere, but the Trump administration is plastering themselves all over it, and Trump is branding himself all over it. So if the midterms go bad and the lame duckism starts really, really cutting in, And these cluster injuries of problems keep bedogging them. How's it going to look to have a celebration that is completely surrounding Trump himself and Trump the personality? The thing about bread and circus is it does work for a period of time, but you cannot have enough circus to outpace the fact that bread is getting really, really expensive, or that people are worried about their bread, or people have concerns about how the bread is getting around to them and how they're going to keep it on the table and how they're going to work to keep that going. These things are going to compound, and as part of a lame duck presidency, especially if they lose the House. The Senate still looks like a steep hill to climb for Team Blue, but you never know. If they lose the House, now you're going to have investigations. You're going to have an impeachment because they're going to run on doing that. That's a foregone conclusion. If not Trump himself, at least some cabinet officials. You're going to have investigations. The money's going to get cut off. You're going to have all sorts of stuff to gum up the works, and very little is going to get done. In fact, President Trump coming out and threatening to hold up everything else until the SAVOR Act gets passed. Well, that's kind of a hollow promise because Congress probably isn't going to get anything else passed the rest of the year anyway. They're losing procedural votes left, right, and center. And Speaker Mike Johnson doesn't seem to be able to hold his caucus together. And folks are going to start wanting some daylight to try to save their skins in this midterm. All these things start piling up. So when we talk about self-induced cluster injuries, watch for these in the coming days. It's not the individual things. And the news cycle is very much obsessed with just covering things day to day and not laying them all together. So let's take the big picture and start laying some of these things out and why they start clustering. The economy and the war go together. The economy and tariffs go together. The conduct of the government and how people feel the economy is going go together. When the number one problem in people's polling is government isn't being run well, and you have all three branches of government, and you have Donald Trump, who has been the dominant thing in all of media for a decade now, both in and out of office, that's not boding well for what's coming in the future electorally, and people should prepare accordingly. And a lot of the things that some people have liked about Trump and that has served Trump well up until this point, the constant self-branding, the constant aggrandizement, the constant making himself the center of everything, will turn into a weakness. Because one of the problems with cluster injuries is it starts revealing that your strengths may be a weakness if you don't have good balance. Trump administration and Trump politics has never been balanced. It's been full go all the time. And as the lame duck starts to bite, and especially if they lose the midterm election, which looks like it's probably going to happen and it goes badly, perhaps very historically badly, and then you try to have a big celebration of America that's all about you, that ain't going to play real well. So, cluster injuries piling up. Pay attention to these news items, not in a vacuum. It's one of our core principles of what we try to do here. Look at it in a sequence of events. And the sequence of events right now is it's not just the Iran war. It's not just the economy. It's not just losing faith in government. It's not just the chaos inside of the Trump government itself. And we know historically after the midterms, there's probably going to be some cabinet churn, which means more nominations and more hearings and more chaos. These things add up. And more than anything else, as we learned from the first Trump administration, it just wears people out and people get tired of it and people want to go to something else. So that's why we're going to bring up this thing about cluster injuries, self-induced wounds to your own self because you either don't know any better or you don't care, or more to the fact, you're just in a rut in how to do things and you don't know any other way to do it. The Trump administration has laid out what they want to get done and they're going to go at it full bore. It's going to be up to the electorate to change that. And if history is any guide and common sense is any guide and the polling is any guide, it looks like the electorate is going to step in and give Team Blue a chance to counterbalance some of this. We'll see what they do with it. In the meantime, all of these headlines, and we can't stress this enough, don't take them one at a time. Don't react to the news. Take the step back and keep it all in perspective. Understand that the Iran war right now goes back to October 7th, goes all the way back to the 70s, goes all the way back to decades and decades of stuff. It's not just what's happening right now. Understand the role of world powers like Russia and China here. Don't just happen because of this. It's because of what's going on in Ukraine. It's because of the Chinese economy. It's because of the purge of military officials in China that they have to lay out of stuff right now because it's going to take them a year to 18 months to recalibrate the internal politics of their party and their military structure. It's Ukraine and what's going on there. We're seeing all this drone warfare and missile defense stuff in the Middle East. We have 4 years of data in Ukraine. We should probably put those two things together. And as always, we can look internally too. The economics of a Middle East war are not foreign to us. This is our third go round of a major shooting event in the Persian Gulf in my lifetime. The middle one, I was there for. The first one and this one, I'm watching on TV. You think the fact that America hasn't built an oil refinery since the 70s might play into those gas prices a little bit? Or the fact that when Qatar cut off 20% of the world's LNG, natural gas compression that sends out at the world, when America could have been putting LNG ports all along the Gulf and Atlantic coast and mitigated that some? These are lessons we should have learned ahead of time. We did not. And now we should definitely learn them again because there will be a next time. Maybe we should turn internally on fixing some of this stuff ahead of time. But we are not a serious people right now. We're too interested in being entertained by other things. And until we are, we have a representative government, and the government represents us. So whether you like Donald Trump or not, whether you like the GOP majority or not, that's our government. And we need to do something at the ballot box if you don't like it. So, self-induced wounds. It's not just the politicians. If you don't like how the country's going, remember, we voted for this. So we have to find a mirror ourselves and also look at that. Because of representative democracy, most of the self-inflicted wounds start with an electorate that is what they tolerate. We appreciate your time. Make sure you subscribe if you don't already. We're doing more of these short form things right now as we gear up to do some other long form media coming up. Herdtailmedia.com, the new one-stop routing website for everything on the Substack, on the YouTube, Four for the Fire on the Twitter is my personal stuff. We'd love to hear from you. Give us comments, epistles, your reaction. We will respond to it. We hope you all are well. We hope you are well fed. And we'll talk to you again soon for more Herd Tell.